Hello, and welcome back. Today, we're stepping into a world stripped bare of easy answers, a landscape where the vibrant flush of new love meets the harsh, grey reality of its decay. We're diving deep into Derek Cianfrance's 2010 masterpiece, Blue Valentine. This isn't your typical romance, it's an autopsy of one, a film that dares to juxtapose the dizzying highs of courtship with the soul-crushing lows of a marriage gasping for air. It holds up a mirror, sometimes uncomfortably close, reflecting the terrifying fragility of connection and the devastating ways time can erode even the most passionate foundations. Prepare yourselves, because this journey is raw, it's intimate, and it's unflinchingly honest. We witness the birth and simultaneous death throes of a relationship following Dean Pereira and Cindy Heller as they navigate the labyrinth of love, commitment, and disillusionment. We see the man Dean was, full of impulsive charm and romantic notions, and the man he becomes, clinging, perhaps drowning, in the wreckage of what they built. We see the hopeful, bright Cindy, drawn to Dean's raw energy, and the woman she evolves into, weary, burdened, yearning for an escape she can't quite articulate. Blue Valentine doesn't offer neat resolutions or clear villains. It presents two people, flawed and hurting, caught in the undertow of life, love, and the promises they made when the future seemed boundless. It's a cinematic experience that lingers, that gets under your skin, forcing us to ask difficult questions about what it truly takes to make love last. So, take a deep breath. Let's explore the bruised heart of Blue Valentine. Slight shift in music, perhaps a lighter, more hopeful acoustic melody briefly surfaces before receding. Our story unfolds across two distinct timelines, dancing between the intoxicating bloom of the past and the suffocating wilt of the present. We meet Dean and Cindy,
not at their fairy tale beginning, nor quite at their definitive end, but in the messy, agonizing in-between of their present day. They live in rural Pennsylvania, their house filled with the echoes of arguments and the ghosts of happier times. Their daughter, Frankie, a bright spark in the encroaching gloom, is the fragile tether holding them loosely together. The morning starts like many others, steeped in a quiet tension, but the catalyst for unravelling arrives unexpectedly. Their dog, Megan, is missing. Frankie is distraught. Dean tries to comfort her, his affection genuine but perhaps a little performative, a little too loud. Cindy watches, her face a mask of weary resignation. The search for the dog becomes a microcosm of their failing relationship, a desperate attempt to retrieve something lost, overshadowed by miscommunication and simmering resentment. The discovery is brutal. Megan lies dead on the roadside, hit by a car. Dean, ever the emotional nucleus, insists on burying her himself, a raw, almost primal act of grief and perhaps symbolic closure. He digs the grave with a quiet intensity, the physical exertion a release for the pent-up emotions warring within him. Cindy observes, detached, her grief seemingly muted, or perhaps just internalized differently. The space between them feels vast, even as they stand feet apart in their own backyard. This shared trauma doesn't unite them, it merely highlights the chasm. Dean carries the weight of this loss, and perhaps the weight of their entire failing world, back into the house. He sees this moment, this shared tragedy, as an opportunity, however bleak, to reconnect. He clings to the idea that they can fix this, that the love they once shared is still buried somewhere beneath the layers of disappointment and hurt. This desperation fuels his suggestion, a romantic getaway, just the two of them. He books a room at a themed motel, choosing, with a painful lack of self-awareness, the future room. A sterile space-age chamber designed for escapism, but destined for them to become a crucible. Music shifts again, becoming warmer, more optimistic, perhaps featuring a gentle ukulele strum. But who were they before this? How did this profound disconnect begin? The film whisks us back years earlier to the spark that ignited it all. We see a younger Dean, brimming with a restless, almost poetic energy. He's working for a moving company in Brooklyn, a high school dropout with a romantic soul hiding beneath a veneer of working-class swagger. He's charming, persistent, maybe a little naive about the grand pronouncements of love he so readily makes. He first lays eyes on Cindy across the sterile hallway of a nursing home. He's helping move an elderly resident. She's visiting her grandmother. There's an immediate magnetic pull. Dean is instantly captivated by her quiet intelligence, her reserved beauty. He's awkward, fumbling, but relentlessly endearing. He tries to make her laugh, his vulnerability worn openly. Cindy, a pre-med student burdened by familial expectations and navigating a complicated relationship with a physically imposing, possessive boyfriend named Bobby, is initially hesitant, perhaps wary of Dean's intensity. Yet something in his unguarded honesty disarms her. Their early courtship unfolds in a series of beautifully captured, almost dreamlike vignettes. There's the shared bus ride, filled with tentative smiles and nervous laughter, the city lights blaring past them, mirroring the exhilarating blur of new attraction. Dean isn't polished. He's real, sometimes painfully so. He tells stories, perhaps embellished, revealing glimpses of a difficult past, but always framing it with a hopeful, almost childlike optimism. He sees potential, not limitations. One of the most iconic moments of their blossoming romance happens spontaneously, magically, on a late-night street corner. Standing outside a closed bridal shop, bathed in the soft glow of the display window mannequins, Dean pulls out a ukulele. He serenades Cindy with a bittersweet, oddly prophetic rendition of "You Always Hurt the One You Love." It's playful, melancholic, utterly sincere. He coaxes a smile, then laughter from her. He starts tap dancing on the sidewalk, a goofy, uninhibited expression of pure joy. In this moment, Cindy lets her guard down completely. She joins him, her initial shyness melting away into shared, unrestrained delight. They are illuminated, momentarily perfect, two souls finding an unexpected harmony under the city lights. It's a scene brimming with the intoxicating promise of young love, the belief that sheer force of feeling can conquer all. Their connection deepens rapidly, fueled by this raw, unfiltered chemistry. Dean represents an escape for Cindy, an escape from the pressures of her studies, the stifling atmosphere of her parents' unhappy marriage, and the brooding presence of Bobby. Dean offers passion, spontaneity, and unconditional adoration. He sees her, truly sees her, in a way she perhaps feels no one else does. But reality soon intrudes, testing the foundations of their burgeoning romance. Cindy discovers she is pregnant. The father isn't Dean, it's Bobby. The weight of this revelation is crushing. We see Cindy grapple with the impossible choice, visiting an abortion clinic, her face etched with fear and uncertainty. The scene is handled with
quiet devastation, focusing on Cindy's isolation and vulnerability. And here, Dean's character shines in a different, perhaps defining light. When Cindy eventually confides in him, hinting at her situation without explicitly stating the paternity, Dean doesn't flinch. He doesn't demand answers or cast judgment. Instead, in the sterile, emotionally charged waiting room of the clinic, while Cindy is inside, he encounters Bobby. The confrontation is tense, simmering with unspoken male rivalry and possessiveness from Bobby's side. But Dean remains steadfast. Later, when a distraught Cindy emerges, having decided not to go through with the procedure, Dean offers something simple, yet profound: unwavering support. He tells her, with quiet conviction, that it doesn't matter. He wants to be with her, wants to build a life with her, wants to raise the child as his own. His acceptance, his willingness to embrace this unexpected, complicated future solidifies their bond. It's a grand romantic gesture, born not of naivete, but perhaps of a deep-seated desire for family, for belonging, something his own fractured upbringing likely denied him. For Cindy, terrified and adrift, Dean becomes her anchor. His love feels like a safe harbor. In a moment of impulsive certainty, fueled by relief, gratitude, and genuine affection, they decide to get married. The wedding is a quick, courthouse affair, simple, unadorned, yet imbued with a potent mix of hope and trepidation. They exchange vows, young and perhaps unprepared, stepping willingly into a future neither could have fully predicted. The Polaroid snapshots taken that day capture fleeting smiles, hopeful glances, frozen moments, oblivious to the slow erosion that awaits them. Music shifts back to the present day, tense, discordant, atmospheric. Now, flash forward 6 years, back to the suffocating confines of the future room. The promise of that courthouse wedding has curdled. The simple motel room, meant to reignite a spark, becomes an echo chamber for their accumulated grievances. Dean tries, he really does, in his own clumsy way. He brings booze, hoping to loosen the tension, to recapture the carefree intimacy they once shared. But the alcohol only fuels the fire, sharpening the edges of their words, lowering their inhibitions in the worst possible way. The room itself feels symbolic, cold, impersonal, futuristic in a way that feels dated and isolating. It's a stark contrast to the warm, lived-in chaos of their past encounters. They attempt intimacy, but it's strained, awkward, almost painful to watch. The physical connection they once shared so effortlessly is now fraught with years of unspoken resentments and misaligned desires. Cindy pulls away, physically and emotionally. Dean, feeling rejected, lashes out, his hurt manifesting as anger and accusation. He drinks more heavily. His charm, once endearing, now feels like a desperate performance. He clings to the past, reminding Cindy of how things used to be, seemingly unable or unwilling to acknowledge how much they've both changed. He romanticizes their early struggles, forgetting the compromises and sacrifices, particularly Cindy's. He sees himself as the devoted husband and father, content with his blue-collar life, providing for his family. He doesn't understand, or perhaps refuses to see, Cindy's profound unhappiness, her feeling of being trapped, her yearning for the potential she feels she abandoned. Cindy, now a surgical nurse, carries the weight of responsibility differently. She's competent, professional, finding a sense of purpose and identity in her demanding job that seems lacking at home. She sees Dean's contentment as stagnation, his drinking as a problem, his possessiveness as suffocating. The qualities that once drew her to him, his intensity, his focus solely on her, now feel like chains. She feels unseen, unheard, her own ambitions and frustrations dismissed or ignored. She craves growth, change, something more than the life they've settled into. The arguments in the motel room escalate. They circle the same painful subjects: Dean's drinking, Cindy's perceived coldness, money worries, differing life goals, the shadow of Bobby Ontario that still lingers, unspoken but present. Dean accuses her of not trying, of giving up on them. Cindy accuses him of holding her back, of being complacent, of not being the man she needs him to be anymore. The dialogue is brutal, realistic, capturing the way couples who once loved each other fiercely can wound each other so deeply, knowing exactly where the vulnerabilities lie. Every word is laden with years of history, every silence thick with unspoken accusations. Dean's desperation leads him down a destructive path. Seeking validation, or perhaps just wanting to provoke a reaction, he gets drunk and shows up unannounced at the hospital where Cindy works. He confronts her colleague, Dr. Feinberg, his jealousy and insecurity flaring into an ugly public display. He makes a scene, humiliating Cindy and confirming her worst fears about his instability and lack of respect for her professional life. This act feels like a point of no return, severing another crucial thread between them. Cindy's boss, witnessing the outburst, ultimately fires Dean from a painting job he had arranged for him at the hospital, stripping Dean of another piece of his identity and adding financial strain to their already fractured relationship. Music takes on a searching, more fragmented quality, reflecting the internal struggles. Throughout this present-day dissolution, the film masterfully intercuts memories, not just of the idyllic beginnings, but also of moments where the cracks first started to appear, moments perhaps ignored or misinterpreted at the time. We see glimpses of Dean's possessiveness subtly emerging even during their courtship, his romantic ideals occasionally bordering on unrealistic expectations. We sense Cindy's early awareness of their differing ambitions, her fleeting doubts perhaps pushed aside by the intensity of their initial passion and the circumstances of her pregnancy. The film doesn't paint either character as solely responsible. Dean's love, while genuine, becomes stifling. He wants to preserve the bubble of their family unit, perhaps fearing that if Cindy grows or changes too much, she will leave him. His contentment is perceived as a lack of ambition, his affection as control. He struggles to articulate his feelings beyond grand gestures or drunken outbursts, leading to constant miscommunication. His desire to be a good father is undeniable, but his relationship with Cindy is crumbling under the weight of his own insecurities and his inability to adapt. Cindy, on the other hand, feels the burden of choices made years ago. The path she envisioned for herself, medical school, a professional career, was diverted. While she loves Frankie deeply, there's an undeniable undercurrent of resentment towards Dean, whom she perhaps blames, fairly or unfairly, for her perceived limitations. Her withdrawal and coldness are defense mechanisms born of years of frustration and feeling unheard. She seeks escape, but her path forward is unclear. Her desire for more remains undefined, making it impossible for Dean to understand, let alone fulfill. She is trapped not just by Dean, but perhaps by her own inability to reconcile the life she has with the life she imagined. The contrast between the timelines is devastating. The passionate kiss on a doorstep in the past dissolves into a cold shoulder in the present. The shared laughter on a bus gives way to strained silence in a car. The goofy serenade transforms into a drunken, accusatory rant. Quien France uses these shifts not just for narrative structure, but for emotional impact, constantly reminding us of what has been lost, highlighting the tragic trajectory from hopeful beginning to agonizing end. The handheld camera work, the intimate close-ups, particularly in the present day, create a sense of claustrophobia, trapping the viewer within the raw, uncomfortable intimacy of their conflict. The grainy aesthetic of the past suggests warm, imperfect memories, while the harsher, digital look of the present reflects the cold, stark reality. Music becomes slower, more resonant, filled with a sense of finality and sorrow. The disastrous motel getaway culminates not in reconciliation, but in resignation, at least for Cindy. The drive home is heavy with unspoken finality. The attempt to force intimacy, to recapture the past, has only solidified the distance between them. They return to the familiar territory of Cindy's parents' house, the place where external judgments and familial patterns further complicate their dynamic. The final confrontation unfolds here, amidst the mundane backdrop of domestic life. It's not explosive in the way the motel arguments were, but carries a deeper, more profound despair. Cindy makes her intention clear. She wants out. She can't do it anymore. The words hang in the air, heavy and irreversible. Dean is shattered. He pleads, he bargains, he resorts to anger, then back to desperate declarations of love. He can't comprehend how they reached this point. "How can you trust your feelings?" he asks, bewildered. "What are feelings? They're just feelings." For Dean, love is a commitment, a promise made, not something subject to the whims of emotion. He clings to the vows they took, the life they built, the daughter they share. He tries to remind her of the good times, pulling out the memory of their song, "You always hurt the one you love." But the irony is now crushingly painful. He follows her, desperate, unable to let go. He takes off his wedding ring, throws it away in a symbolic gesture of frustration, only to immediately scramble on the ground, frantically searching for it. This single act encapsulates his internal conflict, the desire to lash out, to reject the source of his pain, immediately followed by the terrifying realization of what he stands to lose, the desperate need to hold on to the symbol of what was. Cindy watches him, her expression a mixture of pity, exhaustion, and unwavering resolve. She has made her decision. There's a quiet finality in her demeanor that Dean, in his emotional turmoil, cannot breach. He begs her to tell him what to do, how to fix it, but the answer she gives is perhaps the most heartbreaking. She doesn't know. There is nothing left to fix. The love, the connection she once felt, is gone, eroded beyond repair. The climax is agonizingly drawn out. Dean finally seems to accept, or at least acknowledge, the futility of his pleading. He walks away down the street, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Frankie, their daughter, witnessing the separation, runs after him, calling, "Daddy, Daddy!" Dean hesitates, torn. He turns back, sees Cindy watching from the porch, resolute. He tells Frankie to go back to her mum. He creates a game. If she catches you, you have to stay with her. If I get away, you stay with her. It's a child's game masking an adult tragedy. He walks away again, faster this time, not looking back. Frankie chases him, crying. And then fireworks begin to explode in the sky, incongruous bursts of colour and light against the backdrop of this profound personal devastation. Are they remnants of a forgotten celebration, or a symbolic representation of the fleeting, explosive nature of their passion, now just fading sparks in the night? Dean keeps walking, disappearing into the distance as Frankie eventually stops, caught between her departing father and her waiting mother. The camera lingers on the fireworks, beautiful and temporary, much like the intense love Dean and Cindy once shared. The film doesn't give us closure. It leaves us in that moment of painful separation, the future uncertain, the damage irreparable. Music swells slightly, incorporating the ukulele theme, but in a minor key, melancholic and reflective. As the end credits roll, they are accompanied by a montage of fading Polaroid photographs, those snapshots from their wedding day, from happier times. The images gradually bleach out, ghosts of moments dissolving before our eyes, a perfect visual metaphor for the erosion of their love and memories over time. It's a poignant, devastating coda to a story that offers no easy comfort. Blue Valentine is a difficult film to watch, but an essential one. It strips away the romanticized veneer often applied to relationships and exposes the raw, messy, often painful reality. It explores the complex interplay of class, ambition, sacrifice, and communication, or the lack thereof. Ryan Gosling's Dean is a man ruled by his heart, whose romantic ideals ultimately clash with the practicalities and compromises of long-term commitment, his love becoming possessive and self-destructive. Michelle Williams' Cindy is equally complex, a woman grappling with the consequences of past choices, yearning for growth and self-fulfillment, whose initial attraction fades into a feeling of suffocation and resentment. The film doesn't ask us to choose sides. It asks us to bear witness, to understand how two people drawn together by undeniable chemistry and genuine affection can drift so far apart. How love, without constant nurturing, communication, and mutual respect for individual growth, can wither and die. It reminds us that the passionate beginnings, those moments immortalized in memory like Dean and Cindy's tap dance serenade, don't guarantee a happy ending. Sometimes, the very intensity that pulls two people together can contain the seeds of their eventual destruction. It's a story about the relentless passage of time and its effect on love, about unspoken expectations and the weight of compromises, about the difference between loving the idea of someone and loving the person they actually become. Blue Valentine doesn't flinch from the ugliness, the desperation, the quiet heartbreak of a love that has run its course. It leaves us with the haunting echo of Dean's ukulele, the fading images of a hopeful past, and the unsettling recognition that sometimes love simply isn't enough. It's a Valentine, yes, but one stained with tears, bruised and battered by reality, a Blue Valentine indeed.